Hello and welcome to this critical thinking series, and today we've going to be looking at Ukraine. Now I know that before we've looked at Gibraltar and Syria, and they appear to have faded into world history a little bit, and we know very well that the events in Ukraine, the current events, which I will go over a bit, will fade into world history as well. And yet at the moment there are a lot of people, particularly in Ukraine, who are getting rather agitated by the whole matter. Now I'm not wishing to say that in a way to kind of downplay or trivialise the matter, but I think it helps. Okay, so for those who don't know what's going on in Ukraine, well, there are demonstrations. They started predominantly by pro-European Union part of Ukraine, which I think seems to be allied to the ethnic Ukrainian majority. Now, whereas what happened was President Yanukovych, who was democratically elected, as far as I'm aware. I don't know that Ukraine is a completely democratic country, but the elections seem to have been fairly fair. So he was elected. He agreed, as far as I'm aware, to sign an agreement to join, at least to join the European Union in principle. And then he changed his mind and said that he wasn't going to do it. And I think now he's saying that he is going to do it. He's vacillating. And the Western people were not too happy with this, because they wished to join the European Union. The Western part, I think predominantly, is probably beyond dispute, would like to join the European Union. My wife, I've got some connection with this in that my wife is Ukrainian and she's West Ukrainian, and she is thoroughly pro the events in Maidan Square and joining the European Union, and so are her friends and so forth. The interesting part for me in terms of critical thinking is not who's right and who's wrong, because to enable critical thinking is to look at the people in the East, who are the Russians. And I, as far as I can see, this matter, this dispute over whether or not to join the European Union, seems to be divided along ethnic lines, roughly, between the ethnic Ukrainians, who make up about 80% of the population, wishing to go to the West, and the ethnic Russians, who are about 20% of the population, wishing to go to the East. Now, what I would like to say in terms of critical thinking is, this is just my opinions. So I really would encourage people to write in, and if they wish to say that what I'm saying is nonsense or rubbish, or that I don't know all the facts, and that is perfectly fine. I'm just a human being, just as you are, just as the leaders of these parties are, and just as the demonstrators on either side are. We all have incomplete knowledge, and we're all doing our best to hopefully, in terms of critical thinking, to find out what's the correct way, or a compromise, or a way forward. And I would say that it's interesting, my own wife's perspective on this, how it's changed. There was very dramatic demonstrations calling for a revolution, and it was about freedom and democracy and overthrowing Yanukovych, who was a Russian stooge. And I said, this is all very well. I said to my wife, well, what about the people in the East? And there's been a demonstration today from the East, people from the East who support Party of Regions, which is President Yanukovych's party, which seems to be fairly pro-Russian, if I must say, although it makes out that it's fair and equal. It would seem to me to be fairly influenced by Moscow. It would seem to me that President Yanukovych's party Yanukovych probably went to Moscow, and President Putin advised him not to sign the agreement to enter the European Union, and there may have been some money changed hands or some promises and so on. You know, this is my opinion. I could be completely wrong, but it would just be my hunch. So I said, well, what about the people in the East? You know, you're shouting about this revolution and freedom and all of this. And she said, well, they're not the same as us. And they just drink, and they don't really understand politics. You know, they don't know about this. And I thought, right. So well, they're not exactly subhuman then, but what you're kind of saying is they don't really count. And then she got rather agitated about this, you know. And then I mentioned to her, well, they've organised their own meeting in Kiev. It was small, I saw on the television. Yeah, but there's quite a few thousand people there, you know. Definitely smaller than the one in Maidan Square. And she said, oh, well, they've all been paid to attend. They've all been paid to attend, and they have to go. And so we watched it, and we heard the people speaking, and then my wife said, well, actually, what that speaker just said was quite reasonable. And then they gave an interview with an old lady who had attended this meeting, probably travelled from East Ukraine, and she too, my wife, then conceded what she was saying was quite reasonable. It was just the opinion of a housewife who didn't favour joining the European Union, and who didn't appear to have been paid to attend. It was simply she was expressing her opinion. And so I said to her, my wife, I really don't know who is right or wrong, the west or the eastern side, but I would point out that your own side has told you that these people are stooges, Russian stooges, who don't, you know, who just drink and don't care and are not interested in politics or whatever. And yet ordinary housewives are prepared to travel to Kiev. It matters so much to them that they are prepared to travel here in order to, for an issue that they regard as important to their lives. And they oppose you. They have a different point of view to you. What are you going to do about that? Are you just going to kill them? Are you going to have a revolution or stamp them out and so forth? And I think my wife then did have a sort of respect for this opposing view. And then I tried to take it further, and I said, are you any different from these people in the East? And does it really matter? Here's the important thing. Whether you join the European Union or whether you join with the Russians, it would probably be better to stay on your own, quite frankly, because if you join either, I doubt that you're going to be a paradise. I doubt that it's going to dramatically improve your standard of livings either way. European Union, as far as I'm aware, is undergoing considerable problems, and the Russian Federation is not the best of places to live either. Sometimes, maybe that's a bit of a biased opinion, I don't know. And I said to her, perhaps both sides are being manipulated. Perhaps both sides are being manipulated and turning against each other in a way by our external forces. And this is, you know, one side playing upon Ukrainian nationalism, the other side playing upon Russian nationalism. And perhaps that's something to think about and to say, essentially, to these leaders, fuck off out of our lives and leave us alone. And if you fuck off, our lives in the West and the East will be a lot better. Because every time you get into power, it's 6 months before some of you are bloody on some fraud charge. Sorry for speaking out of turn. But anyway, for critical thinking, that's Ukraine. And as we know, in a few months' time, it will have receded into world history, and we'll be talking about something else. But you yourself, keep your mind pure and keep it your own if you possibly can. It's not that difficult. It's not easy, I should say. It's very hard to keep an open mind. I know that myself. I'm daily bombarded by all manner of prejudices and negative thoughts and all the rest of it. But I think we owe it to ourselves to try, and that's part of being a human being. So thank you very much for listening. Accept, reject, or ignore what I say, and that's entirely up to you, and all power to you for doing so. Thank you. Bye.